Welcome to Holistically Speaking. I'm Hilary Russo, certified holistic health coach and health and wellness journalist. This is an empowering place to explore self-awareness, self-love, and transformation through health, healing, and humor. By sharing life-changing experiences, knowledge, and guests with varied expertise, we'll explore who we are, how we got that way, and what it takes to be a happy and healthy grown-up. Mind, body, and spirit. I'm glad you're here. How many times have you ignored your body when it tells you something is up? I'll be honest, I'm guilty of it, and I've done it more times than I want to admit. And when it comes to allergies, we are flooded with and living in this gluten-free, grain-free, nut-free, dairy-free type of world. Do we really know what's creating those upsets within? Are we misinformed, misdiagnosed, misunderstood? Certified holistic health coach Linda Mechner's story falls right in line with those questions. It's why she is so amazing at supporting those who want to live healthy and well. And by the way, she's also a pretty awesome babysitter too. More on that in a moment. So, if you've got an itch to uncover the truth behind food allergies, you have come to the right place, my friends, because we're about to get resilient on Holistically Speaking. I have known you for over 40 years, and we can say that, right?
We can. It feels crazy, but we can.
It's insane to me when I think about it. You know, I wish I was in the room with you to give you a hug. You're across the country on the other side, on the other coast. And I think to myself, you and I have such a history that dates back to, listeners, get this, Linda was my babysitter from the time I was 3 years old. So you probably win the prize so far on Holistically Speaking for knowing me the longest. I think the only one I can have on here that would trump that would be my mom or my brother David.
Right.
Which is always a possibility.
That would be fun.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be fun? I might have to have like a family reunion, Holistically Speaking, at some point. But you're here because you are a wealth of information. I love what you share and who you are. And I would love to just hold space for you because what we're talking about today is allergies. This is an area I haven't touched on yet. And it is an important topic. And your own story from your own dealings with allergies is quite an interesting one. So the floor is yours.
All right. Well, where to start? I mean, I guess my health story started in high school, and it was actually the time, okay, little side note, Hilary's mom rescued a pony from Rye Playland. And that's
we're going to start there. Okay.
So, this was a time in my life where I had 3 horses. So the pony turned into more, as they do.
And he did.
And so what happened essentially is that I was burning the candle at both ends through high school. And that got me really sick. And that illness basically, little did I know at the time, of course, opened me up to a whole lot of food allergies. And so even when I was supposedly all better from mono, which is what I had gotten sick with for an entire year before it was diagnosed, I didn't feel better. Even though I did all the bed rest, I did everything I was supposed to do to feel better. A year and a half later, I was still dragging around more tired than ever. And it was painful to peel myself off the couch. I couldn't keep up with my friends, although I tried, which didn't help. And eventually my mom was willing to take me, from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor. And all of the standard Western medicine doctors said, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. It's all in your head. You're lazy. That's what teenagers do. It's normal. And I knew there was something wrong. And finally, my mom took me to a holistic doctor in New York City who finally diagnosed me with Epstein-Barr virus, chronic fatigue syndrome, and food allergies. And there was nothing I could do about the Epstein-Barr virus. Most people have that. Chronic fatigue is a syndrome. It's just the description of a conglomeration of symptoms. But food allergies was the only thing that I could actually take any action on. And I was diagnosed with 6 specific food allergies. And I kind of hesitate to even say what they are because sometimes people say, oh, I should take those out of my diet. But the
Mhm.
reality is that we can be allergic to anything. And a lot of times it's the things that we eat most often that we develop these sensitivities to. And so the foods that I was sensitive to were corn, tomatoes, potatoes, shrimp, baker's yeast, and bananas. And those were food, I mean, except for the bananas, those were foods that I ate pretty regularly. And no, I was not allergic to gluten. I was not allergic to dairy. I was not allergic to peanuts. It was those 5 things. And when I took them out of my diet, I actually got my health back surprisingly quickly. I
Mm.
wasn't really tracking at the time because that's not where my head was at. But I do remember very quickly getting back to feeling like a normal functioning person again. And that's where it began. And so I kept those foods out of my diet for many, many years, not realizing that there's an ebb and flow of this because, a doctor tells you you're allergic to these things, you take them out of your diet and you think that's it. I'm good to go forever. But
Mhm.
no, that's not how it goes.
That's interesting, and it's like you're mentioning foods that are fairly healthy, and honestly, I mean, foods from the earth are food is medicine, but not everyone is going to jive with certain foods that are even as natural as possible, like a banana, like some of the things you mentioned. But
Hmm.
it's very common for people to go to that place like, "Oh, I'm itchy. I must have a gluten allergy," or "I'm allergic to nuts because I feel swollen when I eat them." And not to poo-poo those things, uh, I clearly feel for those who do have allergies for pretty much everything, but is it quite common to misdiagnose in a way what someone's allergy might be?
Well, I think it's really difficult to actually have food allergy testing because most physicians don't want to go there.
Mhm.
And a lot of the ones that they do the scratch test, which is
Mm.
it's more the IgE immune pathway. Like it's more for the anaphylactic type of allergies to test
Mhm.
if you're going to react strongly to those with that immune pathway. But we have different immune pathways. And so when you are talking about chronic, systemic, low grade intolerances, the things that people like, they know food is negatively impacting them, but they can't put their finger on what it is. We're really talking about the IgG immune pathway. And when doctors do that, they're usually taking a snapshot of what your what antibodies you have in your body at that time.
Mm.
But the test that I like to use, which I use in my practice now that I'm a health coach, and I mean, this is the path that led me to even being a health coach, is because I felt like at the time I had to invent the wheel to figure this out for myself.
Mhm.
But the test I use now is actually a live cell IgG test, and it tests over 300 different things. And it gives you a lot of information of what might be bothering you so that you can start doing an informed challenge and elimination, which is where you take things out and then reintroduce them to see if you get a return of
Mhm.
symptoms.
That seems to be pretty common these days. We're hearing that more and more that people are trying elimination diets and removing things from their everyday to see, am I feeling better? Is it because of this? Is it because of that? I've found it to be really helpful to do that as well. But
Mhm.
sometimes it's not giving us that full picture.
So this is why I am so passionate about doing the testing first. To do a challenge and elimination
Mhm.
without doing a test first, and again, it depends where you're at and what your goals are. If you are really, really challenged, you need to like pull out all the stops and do whatever you can do to get on top of it. If you're feeling mostly great and wonder if you might feel even better without gluten or dairy, great. Take them out and see if you feel better without gluten or
Mhm.
dairy. But if you're really sick, if you're really struggling, if you're really being challenged by something you can't put your finger on, it's best just to do a good test and then do an informed challenge and elimination. And I'll circle back around to how to do that in a second, but I want to go back to the two types of tests. So the live cell
Mhm.
IgG and the snapshot IgG, because if it's not a live cell test, you're only looking at the antigens that are in your body, which might be telling you what you've been exposed to recently, not how quickly and how dramatically your cells are going to react to any given thing. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Oh, totally. Yeah, especially the cellular level. It's really important we know that. Mhm.
Yeah. So once you have this list of foods, and the test I use basically breaks it down into four categories. It's extreme uh, intolerance, moderate, mild, and no particular reaction. So those are the four levels of things. And so the things that you are having an extreme reaction to, you want to take them out of your diet for a minimum of 6 months before you
Mhm.
reintroduce them.
Mhm.
Things that are moderate, 3 to 4 months. Or, again, if you're really debilitated and you're really trying to get your health back, sometimes it's better to err on the side of keeping them out longer rather than shorter.
Mhm.
And then foods that are mild, I suggest keeping them out of your diet absolutely for 30 days. And the
Mhm.
reason why you have to be so diligent about a good solid 30 days is because a lot of times when people have been so sick and so debilitated for so long, they forget what it feels like to feel good. So you really have to take out everything all at once to feel better, to even remember what it's like. And the analogy I like to use is if you're sitting on two tacks, removing one of them is not going to make you feel 50% better. So,
That's a great analogy. Yeah, I mean, it is because you think about it. I mean, we are so conditioned, and we start thinking maybe this is the best I can feel. So this is kind of the litmus test, or we're basing it off of the low rather than we have the opportunity to go much higher. You know,
yeah.
and so many people live with maladies and upsets with their bodies and their minds.
Hmm.
Because they think, well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is just my Achilles heel. Maybe I'm just meant to be achy, or it's genetic or hereditary, or it's my own fault because I love to eat copious amounts of chocolate, or I'm not going to give up wine, or whatever it is.
Right.
Sometimes we validate things and we think this is as good as it's going to get. And it's a story we're telling ourselves. Don't you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah. And I totally agree. And I think it's just a loss of perspective.
Mm.
The first time I ever did a cleanse, the first cleanse I ever did was a 3 week raw food, wheatgrass juice, colonics, like the full deal for three
Sounds
weeks.
fun.
You know?
You were a joy to be around.
Well, I
You're
actually
always a
went
joy
to
to
a
be
retreat
around.
center to do that. That was a long time ago.
Oh, that's good, and you had a padded cell that you were living in for 3. Because I
I
know
got
when I'm hungry, I'm hangry. I have friends that call me the Incredible Hilk when I'm like when I'm hungry because I get
that's
ornery.
that's hilarious. No, I actually had a room with a view of I think it was a Burger King.
Oh my gosh, it was not. Are you serious?
I swear to God.
It's like the temptation. When I went to not to veer off topic, but it is kind of funny. So I went to Weight Watchers camp as a kid for a summer. We called it Fat Camp. In fact, it was the Fat Camp that was in the TV show Fat Camp in
Oh my.
Wackawax in Pennsylvania, or we called it Lack of Action. But anyway, there was like it was so insular, but there were areas of the camp where you could sneak out and go to like the little store and totally cheat on your Weight Watchers plan. And
Oh my
things were
word.
so close in reach. So to be able to look at a Burger King outside of your retreat is almost like, is this a dangling carrot just to test me?
It was there to torture me for sure.
Of course. Of
but
course.
but what I learned in that 3-week experience was that I had forgotten what it felt like to feel good, because I think it was
Mm.
maybe at the end of the second week I was walking I was walking somewhere and I felt so good. I felt so light, I felt so clear, and it just occurred to me that I hadn't felt that good in as long as I could remember. And at that point, I think I was 23, 24 years old. And as
Wow.
long as I could remember, I didn't feel that good.
Wow.
And it was like walking out of a pea soup fog into a crystal clear day. And you don't know you're into the fog until you have something to compare it to.
Yeah, that's very true. That's kind of what I'm saying is that if you have nowhere else to go or you've never been higher, how do you
Yep,
know higher exists? You know,
exactly.
if you've never been below a certain weight or you've never not felt the aches in the body, it's almost like somebody suddenly getting a new set of eyes they can see again or they see for the first time. And we've
Right.
witnessed that. So I'm sure that was quite an amazing experience and well, no pun intended, but really an eye opener.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's been part of my health compass because I
Mm,
remember what it feels like to feel that good. And when I
mm,
start to feel dull and lethargic and achy, I I know that I don't have to feel that way, that it is possible to change that. And
mm,
so periodically, I mean, since I did the first cleanse, I've done, well, I mean, that was what, 30 years ago? No more, 35 years ago. So I've done, I can't say I've done a cleanse every single year, but some years I've
mm.
done more than one. And well, as a health coach, I've tried everything, I've done it all.
Mhm, right. Right, and we usually do, like, we make ourselves the guinea pigs, don't we? I mean, we were talking
Mhm.
just prior to recording this, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'll try your cleanse or I'll try this," and because it's like we wanna find what works for us, and, both of us being graduates of, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and being IIN alum, I remember the one thing they always used to say is, "It's all about bioindividuality," which it
Mhm.
is. We're all different. What you might be allergic to, I'm not. What you might be someone that's more prone to eating meat where I might be a vegetarian. And there really is no right or wrong. It's what makes us feel the best in our lives.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
that's definitely something to take hold of. But going back to your journey, without blaming Shammy, because he was a
Oh,
wonderful little pony.
it was the love of horses and too many fun things to do.
I know. I mean, you were so great, and just for our listeners to get a little piece of this. So Linda is an equestrian. She was always surrounded by horses, and when we took Shammy in, who was the sweetest little white Welsh pony from, as you said, we saved him from Playland, which was really no place for a horsey to be, a pony to be, giving pony rides and stuff underneath the dragon coaster, right? You broke him in. You broke that pony in, and it was a lot of work, and I loved being around that with you because horsemanship, equestrian horsemanship and equestrian therapy, which I am so fortunate I get to work in periodically, is just such a beautiful dance between the animal itself and the human being. But you were
Yeah.
so dedicated to it. I could see how that drained you. I could see because it wasn't just Shammy. There were other horses you were taking care of.
Oh, yeah, and that was just like that was just one part of my life. I also
Right.
was doing martial arts. I was a
Mhm.
teenager. I had friends. We went out. Um, I was burning the candles at both ends. I would stay up
Yeah,
late and get up early, and I was very physically active. And
and you had to babysit me. I mean, right there will put you into therapy. I mean, you did. You were a teenager taking on a lot, which is not uncommon, right? We tend
Yeah.
to be able to do or force ourselves to do more when we're younger, not realizing we still are taking a toll on our bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's that concept of chi, that we have this certain amount of
Mhm.
life force in us, and how fast we expend it determines our lifespan. And
Mhm.
I look back and realize that I spent a lot really early, because I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs, I didn't do that kind of stuff, but I did not sleep, and I worked. I just was so go, 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 go. And the only way
Mhm.
I knew I was tired was to fall down or get
Mhm.
sick. Like, being sick was my body's only way of stopping me.
Yeah. So you went through this process. Mom took you to the doctors. You got
Hmm.
things in check. You had a better understanding. But then you did have a wake up call. I mean, you had this car accident. And I
Right.
can't recall exactly when that was, but you had the car accident. You were dealing with the vertigo. And all of these things were still propelling you forward, but still pulling you back. So elaborate a little bit on that.
Right. Right. Okay. So to go to that part of my roller coaster health journey,
Mm,
this was after I'd graduated from IIN. I was
mhm,
probably in the best shape of my adult life. I had had two kids by then. I
mm.
My health journey has a lot of ups and downs, but at this point, I
Sure.
was very fit. I was at my ideal weight. I was hiking 5 days a week with a weight vest up some really steep hills. I mean, I was fit.
Mhm,
And then coming home from picking my kids up from school one day, I got rear-ended by somebody I knew.
mhm,
And it was not, it wasn't a horrible accident. It wasn't like we had to call the cops. It was like, wow, you know, that was a good hard thump. And we went on our merry way. I went home, and, I was pretty shaken up. So I just spent the rest of the afternoon on the couch, just kind of relaxing, and, you know, but as a health coach, I also knew it's like, okay, something happens to your body. You need to deal with the trauma. You need to handle it sooner rather than later. So I went to the chiropractor. I went to the acupuncturist. Um, but over the course of maybe a week, I just felt worse and worse and worse. And then I was feeling achy, and nothing was particularly wrong, but I felt like I had the flu.
mhm,
And so I stopped, I was not working out like I usually do when I felt like I had the flu. I just took it easy. And then I started getting even worse pain. And I won't go into all of the details, but I wound up with thoracic outlet syndrome, which is
mm.
probably the most excruciatingly painful thing I've ever experienced, other than stomach ulcers, which is a whole other story. Okay, my story has lots of twists and turns, which is why I do what I do.
Mhm,
Um, but long story short, I did everything I knew how to do. I went to, okay, on top of the chiropractic and the acupuncture, I got some energetic body work, I got massage, and I just kept getting worse and worse. And for 3 weeks, I didn't work out because I felt like I had the flu. And finally, I was like, well, maybe I don't have the flu. Maybe I just need to get my butt out there and get going again. So I went out to do my hike, and my joints hurt. And I came back more exhausted than when I'd started.
mm,
And and honestly, it went on like that for a year and a half, to the point that I actually was having vertigo. I was having room spins. I would spend hours on my bed, holding onto the sides of my bed, feeling, just willing the world to stop spinning. And at that point, I was a health coach, and I cannot tell you how demoralizing it is to
mm.
be a health coach and not be able to fix yourself,
Yeah.
not be able to get to the root of your own stuff.
I hear that a lot, and I have some guests that have been both on the show and that are coming up that have dealt with their own personal health battles, and that feeling of fail and, like you said, demoralizing, and almost like, if I'm not well, how can I preach wellness? You
Mhm.
know?
Yep.
So that add that trauma and stress to life,
Yep.
you know?
So much self-doubt, and
Mm,
oh, it was a dark time.
Hmm.
But a miracle happened, fortunately. And one day I walked in to my friend who has a compounding pharmacy. I walked into her pharmacy, and there on the counter, somebody had dropped a flyer the for the food intolerance test that I now use. And I
Hmm.
read the flyer and I thought, oh my God, that's it. That's what's going on, because I had basically every symptom that it described. And and that was the only thing I mean, it was the only thing left. I'd done everything I knew to do. I mean, for a year and a half, the worse I felt, the better I would eat, the better I would take care of myself, the more diligent I'd be. But the more diligent I would be, the worse I felt. And honestly, there were times that I felt better eating pizza and ice cream than I did eating a kale salad and an apple.
And this goes back to allergies being different and intolerances to being different. Are you of the
Mhm.
school of thought that our body does change over the years and what we can have an allergy to earlier could go away or manifest?
Absolutely, without doubt. There's some allergies that don't change, but there are a lot of allergies that do change, because an allergy, sort of by definition, is your body's somewhat erroneous decision respond to over respond to something that's not really a pathogen. Like,
Mm.
your immune system recognizes it and it reacts to it, but it's not in and of itself harmful.
So interesting. So all of these years, you thought you were on track. You had everything going, and this one occurrence, this car accident leading to the vertigo, leading to the food intolerance, leading to you feeling like crap after
Mhm.
feeling your best, after getting everything in check back when you were in high school and pursuing your life in the field of holistic health. And then it's almost like a slap in the face, or maybe an
Yeah.
awakening, more of an
Yeah.
awakening.
And what I will say is, at the time of that little fender bender, I was
Mhm.
under a lot of stress. So there's
Mm.
stress with my kids, stress with my ex,
Yeah.
stress with a current boyfriend, stress with the economy. That's when the economy was tanking. And so there's a lot of financial pressure. And so I already had a lot of stress. And that's how a lot of times these allergies, especially not like the anaphylactic kind of allergies,
Mhm.
but the food intolerances start. You're under a lot of stress, and it's the stress and the trauma that
Mhm.
actually is what basically flicks on the switch of the allergies or the sensitivities. Because what happens is, through stress and trauma, injury, illness, um, parasites, heavy metals, there's certain things that lead up to the breakdown of the lining of your digestive system, so it becomes more porous than it should
Mhm.
be. So, but for that final insult of the car accident, it might not have been such an issue, but that was
Mhm.
like the last straw. Like, I was already so stressed, and that was just beyond.
Yeah. It's something that I think we're starting to see people do more and society with realizing the importance of emotional well-being and our mental health, that they do play an important part in our entire microbiome and
Mhm.
our gut. And if we're not aware and we don't know how to navigate our mindfulness, it can
Yeah.
really be the barometer or thermometer, whatever, however you want to look at it, as an indicator to how we're going to live life abundantly, mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
So if you're under this stress, which you were, which many of us are, especially right now, what we're going through with this pandemic,
Yeah.
at this time of recording this, I mean, that there's people that are gaining weight. There's people who are dealing with a lot of emotional and physical and food upsets. And much of that can be manifesting from, I'm living in this house with 5 people and I get no space, or I'm by myself and I'm isolated, or I have to work from home or homeschool, or the holidays are coming up and how am I gonna deal with that? So many where's the next paycheck coming from? So
Yeah.
all of that plays into it. It doesn't have to be an actual physical accident that takes a hit on your body. It is
Right.
taking a hit on your body, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That was a physical trauma.
Yeah.
But I think that, we all, to some degree, we have that base layer of stress going on. And then
Mhm.
it doesn't take much to, to be too much. And
Mhm.
what I've seen over the years is a lot of times people can track their symptoms of food allergies back to a divorce, a
Mhm.
death in the family, to losing a job or starting a job, or another layer of stress that was just you know that last straw.
Like being allergic to your ex-husband? I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. We have to make light of things a little bit, but it, it is part of the stress, like you mentioned. I mean, our relationships are a huge part of our life and our emotional well-being and our physical well-being. So we we need to kind of find the humor
Yeah,
in the traumas, right? We have to. So that was just a little joke to
right.
make our listeners laugh,
And
and
even
you.
even good spouses can be
Yes,
stressful.
and we need to. We need to be able to, like, yell into a pillow every once in a while and scream and just let it go. It's okay, everybody. It's okay to let go. Just don't throw anything or hit anyone, you know? But going back to that, you didn't at that time know how to navigate it until you found this flyer and the food intolerance, and, I think one thing that I'd love for you to touch on too with the immune system is that our gut truly is that indicator. So if you have a rash or a breakout or you're feeling kind of weird in your stomach, these are all these are all indicators of something, and a lot of times we don't pay attention to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people, and this is the way our medical system works, is that you have a symptom, you go to the doctor, and the doctor gives you something to take away the symptom,
Mhm,
rather than looking at, why do you have that symptom? What's the root
mhm,
cause of the symptom? And so when when I think about getting to the root cause, a lot of times food intolerance is the root cause, because you cannot heal the rest of your body if your gut is inflamed,
mhm,
constant if you're having a constant immune reaction.
mhm, mhm,
So it's really hard, because everything is important. The question is, what do you do first? And and that is, again, a very individual thing. But when you think about what root cause is, a lot of times it's, thyroid is one of those root cause things, but the gut and the thyroid are so connected. So if you don't
mhm.
have a functioning thyroid, you also probably don't have a healthy gut. You probably have a higher degree of gut permeability. But if you have a high degree of gut permeability, you're also going to probably have a very challenged thyroid.
And triggers. I would imagine triggers come into play as well. Hmm?
Yeah,
'Cause
I mean,
triggers, yeah.
triggers. So uh, and then all of the other health problems get stacked on top of that. So you're presenting with, maybe eczema or skin rashes or
Mhm.
joint pain or headaches or, gut pain or vertigo or dizziness.
Yeah.
But at some point you have to stop and say, why do I have all of these things? Not, how do I make it go away as fast as possible? Because you're playing whack-a-mole that way.
Yeah. And I I know I've had doctors share this with me, very open about it, those who practice Western med, uh, and we're seeing more doctors, thankfully, that are getting into integrative medicine and more forward thinking too, is that they even will admit they're not that the nutrition part of medical school is like nil, and they're not the ones that know all the answers. So that's what's so great about having health coaches and people who are studying the dietary theories like we did, and people who are learning so much, and then seeing the doctors out there who are doing their best to learn more about integrative medicine and how the gut is so important rather than just putting a Band-Aid on things or God, going right to pharma,
Right.
what can we do to heal our own bodies? Food is thy medicine, right?
Right.
So learning from people and being open-minded to the possibilities and not always going right to the pill is really up to us to do,
Right.
us to learn,
Yeah. And I think another important part of that is for people to have more compassion with
Mhm.
themselves.
Mm,
Um, because a lot of times when people don't feel good, they kind of get pissed at their body, like their body's betraying them,
mhm.
rather than having compassion for this wise being that's trying to send them a message.
Oh, I love that. We tend to not talk to ourselves well, and we need to. Like, my cells matter. I
Mhm.
matter. It's
Mhm.
okay to say I love you in every part of you and being really connected to that side of who you are without coming down on ourselves so easy, which we do. We beat ourselves up. We are our own inner bully.
Yeah.
First and foremost, we tear ourselves apart over the smallest things, you know?
Yeah.
And it definitely doesn't help.
Yeah, and I can say that the reason why my health story has those twists and turns like it does is because I didn't stop and
Mm,
listen soon enough. I just kept pushing through, and sometimes I pushed through because my circumstances demanded it. I had demanding jobs. I
mhm,
was a single parent. I had to keep going. I had to keep doing. But I mean, there was a time in hindsight I almost died,
mm.
and that was of pneumonia. I mean, because I was not really recognizing how serious it was not to
Mhm.
be feeling good. I just kept pushing and kept pushing and kept pushing. The minute I felt better, I would go back to normal.
So what was the turning point where you're like, "Enough is enough for good.
Oh
This
my
is it."
goodness.
Linda, I mean, did you have one of those awakenings?
I think that's something I have to tell myself every day. Like every day, I have to newly give myself permission to make myself the priority. I wish I could tell you I will never make that mistake again, but knowing me, I will.
We all will, and we're human, and that's where the forgiveness comes in, right? Like, we have to forgive and be okay with ourselves, and I think you make a really valid point there,
Yeah.
that
And sometimes you think you think you're doing it, and then you get around another bend and you recognize, wow, I really was shorting myself. Like a
Mhm,
relatively recent epiphany I had was even just driving my kids to school every morning. I'm
mhm,
sort of a night owl and my kids are night owls, and one of my kids would keep me up late and I'd have to take the other one to school early.
mhm,
And my sleep was getting pinched. And at the time, I just thought, well, I have to take my kid to school, which of
mhm,
course I did. But in that, I was really shortchanging myself on my sleep, which really shortchanged my vitality, my energy, my focus. It caused a lot of adrenal issues for me. And
mm,
at the time, I thought I was just doing the best I could. And now that they're both older and I don't have to drive anyone to school anymore, I realize how hard that was.
mhm, mhm, definitely. So here you are, and Linda living, right? Doing the best to just live your best life, healthy, holistically speaking. And I'm really excited because we get to connect on a bigger level with what you have going on right now, which is the Resiliency Lifestyle Summit.
Right.
And this is a really great opportunity for people to tap into living well because you have these amazing leaders and teachers and healers and women with a mission to create this energy and vitality in their lives and holding space for everyone from different areas in health and well-being to be a part of your summit is creating such an amazing library of resiliency. And thank you for including me. I'm very excited to do that journey with you and share my thoughts about emotional health and resiliency. But I want you to take a moment to share with listeners about it.
Yeah. So the Resiliency Lifestyle Summit, it it came about right as we were going into this pandemic. And I'm a very health focused person, but it just didn't seem to make sense to focus on any niche health issues going
Mhm.
into a pandemic, because there's so much stress, so much unknowing of what's around the corner. And also, part of that is I live in Northern California, where we have a lot of fires and a lot of evacuations and a lot of blackouts,
Mm.
and there's a lot of stress. And resiliency has been a big topic in our community for ever since the Tubbs fire, which was, I think, in uh, 2017.
Mhm.
And so when I was putting together the summit, I just moved from a health focus to more resiliency, because you cannot be healthy without resiliency, and you cannot be resilient without your health.
Mm.
And it seemed like a perfect marriage at the time. And it actually has been even better than I expected, because it's such a platform of positivity and strength and different niches. There's something in it for everybody. And it's just such a joy to be able to bring to the world such high quality but down to earth information. And
Mhm.
yeah, I'm excited to have you on. You do
Yeah.
really important work, and
Thank you.
every time I bring on somebody new, I think, wow, it's going to be so valuable to the people that need that. I was just interviewing a Lyme's disease person today, and
Mm.
yeah,
That's an important topic, and I had
very.
Lyme when I was, probably about 13. I was still living in Westchester County in New York, and I got it from a tick, and at that
Hmm.
time, Lyme was not really talked about as much as it is now, you know? So that's a great topic. You have, an amazing variety of topics, talking about holistic health, I don't want people to just assume it's food. We're
Right.
talking about, I mean, you have guests talking about Lyme, you have guests talking about narcissism and weight loss and the deeper nourishment. And I'll be sharing about havening techniques and, perimenopause. And all of these amazing women are so in it's such an enlightening place to be able to go under this library that you're offering from the resiliency lifestyle. And I'll
Yeah.
share that, by the way, in the notes of how you can connect with Linda and touch base with her and connect with this amazing summit. That's really an offering unlike any other. So thank you for providing that.
My absolute pleasure.
Yeah, really amazing. What would you like to just tell people if they came to you and they just questioned their health? What sage advice in your years in this business would you give them as far as taking care of their health as it relates to allergies and just taking the best care of the only temple they have?
Just make health a number one priority. Don't be afraid to pull out all the stops to take care of your health, because when you lose it, then you will really wish that you'd done it differently.
Mm, yeah, health is wealth, right? Knowledge is power.
Literally.
Mm, literally, health is wealth. So love that. That's a great takeaway for sure. And on that note, here we go. I want to do a rapid fire with you real quick. I love ending things on a positive. So I'm going to state a word, and what I'd like for you to do is it's that word association. Just come back as quick as possible with the first word that comes to your mind. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Allergies,
Food.
living,
Well.
equestrian,
Fun.
holistic,
Health.
resiliency.
Me.
I love when people end on me. It's almost like I pick these words because I listen to what you're saying while we're chatting. I really do the rapid fire while we're chatting. I'm writing down words that I want to use. And I feel like a lot of times people end with me, but it says so much because to me, what it says is you are resilient. You believe in resiliency and every other word in there as well. But to leave listeners with that says that you truly embody living well and living with resilience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
love it. And on that note, again, I will share everything about Miss Linda Mechner, one of my favorite people in the world, who I've known for almost my entire life. I truly adore you and love you. And I appreciate you being here and sharing your wealth of information and just sharing you. So thank you. And
Well, thank
I
you.
look forward to continuing the conversation and being a guest on your summit.
I'm looking forward to that.
If you're ready for a more resilient life, join me along with a number of health and wellness experts for the Resiliency Lifestyle Summit, hosted by Linda herself. The link is on the podcast page. And as a thank you for signing up, I'll have a special gift on how to put the power of emotional well-being right back into your own hands and live that resilient life. It's going to be something special. Now, if you're ready to transform your own health right now, no need to wait. Drop me a line on my website or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Hilary Russo. I would love to support you on that journey. Holistically Speaking is produced by Alan Seals with music by Litbone Redding. Until next time, be safe, be well, and don't forget to laugh.